Okay, let me introduce the moderator for the panel discussion, Mr. Hiten Sethi, HSA. Mr. Hiten Sethi is an architect extraordinaire, a truly intellectually and creatively enlightened professional. His iconic designs have entered modern India architecture's Hall of Fame. His most famous structure, the Navi Mumbai Municipal Corporation, NMNC, headquarters at Belapur, is India's first green government building and has entered the Limca Book of Records. His expertise lay in land development, commercial, residential, institutional projects, administrative, social, and healthcare projects, and master planning. Hiten Sethi's novel approach has helped build long-term relationships with clients who keep coming back with new projects for the firm. Hiten Sethi has now embarked on an ambitious drive to create a pan-India presence for the firm and also to step on the international scene with some landmark projects. Can we hear it for the moderator?
Architect Hiten Sethi will be doing the moderation for this panel discussion. We have other eminent panelists also with us who will be joining us also in a short while. Architect Hafeez, Contractor will be joining us. But on the panel, we have Vipul Bansal from L&T Realty. Thank you, sir, for joining us on the panel. You know, nowadays architects use CAD/CAM and other sort of devices to design. In the good old days, they always use their pen and paper. I'm a bit like that. I'm still very much a pen and paper person. So it's taking a bit of time for me to scroll right through. Yep. All right. So without further ado, since I seem to be all thumbs with technology, I would like to remind you that on the panel we also have Mr. Rajmal Nahar from Reliance Industries Limited will be joining us in a short while. And of course, Mr. Nahar, please join us. Thank you so much. He's a chartered accountant with over 30 years of experience in real estate development. He has led the development efforts from business case preparation to final completion of multiple landmark real estate projects. Currently with Reliance Industries Limited as President Real Estate Projects, and he acts as the owner's representative of several key developments by Reliance Industries. Leads a workforce for over 450 highly professional, knowledgeable, and experienced staff. We'd also like to thank, already on the panel, Vipul Bansal of L&T Realty, who is an alumnus of IIT Delhi, almost 3 decades of diverse experience, and he has served as joint MD and CEO of India Bulls Real Estate earlier. And now, of course, he is here with us as a Chief Executive Partnership and Business at L&T Realty Limited. The redoubtable gentleman who just joined us, ladies and gentlemen, needs no introduction at all. He is Padma Shri Hafeez Contractor of Architect Hafeez Contractor. His work speaks for himself, and if you hear him speak, you also know that he's very forthright in what he says and he speaks. So he's a type of gentleman who would want not to waste any time reading a biography or something. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Hiten. We also have Ratan Batliboi. Ratan, sir, thank you for joining us on stage. And he also has an impressive portfolio of work, which speaks for himself. That's why he's a very soft-spoken gentleman, because he lets his work speak for himself. But when he expresses his views, it's clear for all to know what he speaks about. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to hand you over to moderator, Hiten Sethi, to take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Exactly. Looking forward for the session, sir.
So good morning, ladies, gentlemen, architects, engineers, professionals. 2 years back, I think, in last iDAC, I had taken the initiative in 2019 to talk about a vision which our Prime Minister had laid about India being a 5 trillion economy. I think Niranjan Saab was there. He gave a great insights about how building industry, construction industry can bring down the change. So, as now we saw COVID, we saw so many things happening in and around us, and it again re-questions ourselves whether the 5 trillion economy dream is true or not. But the kind of advancements, the kind of achievements we keep on hearing, right from Jammu Kashmir till Chennai, it again reinforces us to believe that all these particular dreams may come true. So here I have the best of best in the industry, which we can all put together and have some more positivity towards in our profession and see and have their insights about this particular concept. Starting with Hafeez sir, because I think in architecture in India, I think everything starts from him. I think I like the questions to start with him. that Indian real estate sector, sir, has remained a key driving force in India after, I think, agro industry, the job provider, the economy, whatever. How will Indian real estate contribute to 5 trillion economy dream as per you after 2 years of setback, whatever we had?
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much. It's very nice of everyone to say 5 trillion, 5 trillion, and I hope that we achieve that at least in our lifetime, okay? Now, it's nice, and every country has to aim for that. Now, we are all meeting after this 2.5 years, and we all know and what was the reason. And if you go back to what is the reason, and we all have to look at climate change. Now, climate change is on one side. 5 trillion achieving is on another side, okay? And how do we achieve that 5 trillion, and how do we take care of climate change? That is the crucial point. And if we do not look at both simultaneously, we'll be in a big problem. Okay. How are we going to achieve 5 trillion? Okay. There has to be progress. Progress in each and every sector, commercial, industrial, and the biggest problem that India has is its population. That is the biggest advantage also. Now today, half of our people do not have proper housing. Now that's the most important point, because if we do not have proper housing, then our people are not being put to proper use. So how are we going to address the climate change? Now for that, another point is we have to build, the forecast says that half of India is going to be built in the next 20 years. Now how is that going to be done? We are gobbling land left, right and center. Each and every state is gobbling land, new cities. And that land gobbling is the farmland. Now, and farmers are gobbling the forest land. And though we project that India has 32% of its land in forest, that is not so. We are not even having 10% as real forest. And if we do not take care of our forest, if we do not take care of our environment, and that's the most important point, okay, we won't have any, the human race is not going to survive. What we are already talking about so many, we are saying that, this summer is very bad, okay, and as time passes by, it is going to be much more bad, okay. There'll be hurricanes, there'll be, so many other things. So the most important thing, how we are going to build our new cities. And our people do not have that idea. The same old bylaws are there, the same old things are there. And we are just, making row houses, ground and 2 upper, 3 upper. Why, when I say ground and 2 upper and 3 upper, we should not? Because our population is 17% of the world's population. And we have only 2% of the land. So where is the land going to be for our forest? So we have to think how we are going to have condensed and high rise. When we say high rise, then how is it going to be affordable? So all these questions, this question we can keep on talking. I'm jumping from one point to another. But it can, we can keep on talking for a whole day also, and you're not going to get a solution.
No, I think there is a solution. Very good insight you have given is that what we are looking for is a very balanced kind of growth. If economy, maybe financial, ecological, political, whatever. I think if I go to Rajmal Nahar Saab, Because I think private and government sectors are, do you think they're doing enough for achieving that particular goal? Is the development what is happening according to you? Is the balanced development?
Very warm good afternoon, everyone. I think it's an honor and pleasure to be here also. Yes, I do agree. We need to do lot in terms of the regulation, the banking, and the organized way to develop any city or any station. There is a scarcity of land which Mr. Hafeez has already been spoken about, but there is a lot more to do in terms of regulatory, according to me, where the Architect Association must step in to make a cohesive representation to the government, to make a very robust systems where the approvals, if I may say that the same CFO is sitting in the high-rise committee, same CFO is having a separate permission for the building, same CFO is a MOF. These three permissions we have to go and I think to beg the CFO to give the permissions. I think this is the, according to me, is not a right way to approach if you want to achieve the 3 million trillion and whatever may be. Secondly, the banking, the way the individual approach by the each and every builders, I think that the greediness that needs to be curtailed. The way if you last 1.5 years, 2 years, 3 years, the lot of reputed builders or the other builders are facing a huge trouble, which is dent on the builder association or whoever may be the credibility. Secondly, we need to approach as far as the lot of inventory which is not there in the market. So there has to be a cohesive approach where you putting any projects. There has to be some sort of study, assessment, locations, the supply and demand. So neither the architect or the structures or the rest of the associate industries and the banking system should not go corrupt the way it is being planned in last 4 or 5 years. Thank you.
So I think coming to the same philosophy about smart governance, I think that is what your dynamic governance you're looking for. Balanced development is the takeaway from Hafeez sir. Vipulji, what has been your experience in the whole?
Thank you. Thank you, iDAC, for having me here. Thank you, Hiten, for inviting me. Short notice though. See, as far as the $5 trillion economy goal is concerned, I feel that, am I audible? Yeah. So I feel that this is a historic time that we are in. And we may have minor glitches here and there in terms of, some approvals and some people. But if you see the ecosystem that the present government dispensation has created all over the country, we have all the policy initiatives which are guiding us towards a balanced growth. We have huge incentives and huge FDI coming in the clean energy sector. We can see that over the course of 10 to 20 years, these are global problems. They are not going to happen, and the solution is not going to happen in a hurry, but we are definitely getting there. There's a huge impetus of government on convergence using technology. There's impetus on infrastructure combined with real estate growth. You have infrastructure, you have initiatives like Gati Shakti and all that, which is talking of convergence. So I personally feel that, as far as the country is concerned, we are well on track for a 5 trillion, mark. Now, whether we get there 2 years ahead, 1 year later is something which is a matter of debate, but we are definitely getting there with the right ecosystem in order.
Yeah, great. I think what reinforces is various kind of schemes which are there, like PMA, Gati scheme, and so on and so forth, where the vision works out that we have to have 20 million houses for housing for all, the basic right of living. We have a GDP real estate contributing to say around 6 to 7% right now, and if 2025 has to happen, then we're talking about 13% GDP just by real estate developers. So that's a good news for all of us under this particular roof. Ratan, can you throw your viewpoints for this dream?
I think what Hafeez talked about is the sustainability perspective, but we are looking now on a regenerative situation. If you want to look at sustainability, it's probably just flatlining and keeping things as they are. But if you look at regenerative, I think it makes a lot of sense.
From an architecture, planning, urban design perspective, I think all of us need to think big, but at a small scale. We can't talk about the country, we have to talk about what we are doing and how we can impact it at any scale. In terms of India makers, I think the panel is here and each one of us is pretty much an India maker by virtue of our contributions and things like that. So I think it's well on our way to achieving what we want to do from the highest authorities. Regulatory is going to be a big issue, but I think what the government is trying to do is pretty much a one-size-fits-all. It could probably be broken down into different cities, different regions, different estates, different consequences. And I think that will make a huge difference rather than trying to impose a formal policy across the nation with variations of climate and culture and economies and things like that. So I think I'll stop here.
And lots of public-private partnerships coming in, and lots of, like as you said, statutes inviting policies being formed. REIT was one of them. And I think Vipul bhai will be a very essential seasoned player in getting REITs. So REIT is a real estate investment trust which has a potential to attract foreign investments. Do you think, sir, India is doing enough to tap foreign investment interest, especially in commercial properties or residential properties?
Definitely. With doing away this double taxation in the REIT structure, it was such an obvious thing to do, but it took so long for us as a country to get there. It makes everybody a participant in the commercial real estate story, which was not so earlier. As far as FDI, which is so critical to having an efficient ecosystem of commercial real estate, grade A office spaces is concerned, there's been in the last 3 or 4 years, I think there's been a more than double FDI coming in as far as the FDI in commercial real estate is concerned. I think somewhere it used to be some 30-35%, and it's now close to 60-70% of what is coming in terms of investment in real estate. The currently listed REITs have been performing well. That gives a credibility to the regulatory environment which has been created, which has been monitoring these systems. To have retail participation in commercial real estate with your dividend yields of 6 to 7% and your aggregate yields including stock appreciation of 12 to 13% is commendable. And I think again, I keep going back, maybe I'm very bullish on India and the present dispensation. I think that the whole ball has been set in motion for more and more grade A offices and more participation from different stakeholders.
So just to beef out the concept of REIT, wanted to implore around $9.65 billion into Indian industries, because Indian industry always used to be banking either upon private lenders or perhaps the banking system. And this was another way to get the foreign investments to make a cash-rich vertical in real estate. I think finally affecting all of us for our further businesses and so on. So you must have been experienced in many REIT projects, perhaps. What are your viewpoints? I mean, which is areas where REIT can actually play an important role?
See, I fully agree that business has to be going on. All this REIT, infusing money, all that has to go on. But I'm telling you, and all my life, I have been in for progress, and I'm still saying that yes, we must have progress. But right now, we are at a level, and our generation is at a level that if we do not, what people said, it's going to be done all over the world and everything. Yeah, fine. But what is happening that everybody thinks that somebody else has to do, not in my backyard. And why India is on a crucial point, because our population is 60% is, a young population. they are going to have kids. So from 3 billion, okay, we will be going to about 2 billion very fast. How are we going to do things? And it's not just for today. It's not just for today. We have to look at 20 years. We have to look at food securities. We have to look at water. All of that is very important. We cannot have sandwiches with 2,000 rupee notes. Okay, you have to have that 2,000 rupee notes also. But think about environment, and you are at a point, once the wheelbarrow starts going back, you cannot stop it in the middle. So our generation is at that point. You have to think about it, and you have to think about all of that very, very earnestly. And if you don't do it, you had it.
So yeah, actually, tier 2, tier 3 are the next focus of all our growth investment platforms. And that is where I think the whole investments, Smart City, 100 cities, what was promoted earlier was with the idea.
Smart, sorry, it's a Prime Minister's idea. Making new cities is wrong. You are gobbling farmland. Okay, redevelop your existing cities, redevelopment. You just can't keep on gobbling land. Land is the most precious commodity. Okay, you can't grow wheat on your head or on your terrace. But
Hafeez sir, sorry to interrupt you.
I think
Sorry to interrupt you. My only request please don't go into it that way. Ultimately, we need to grow. If you go to the city, please.
And I'm sure Hafeez will be doing the maximum township projects outside suburbs.
Yes.
So it's quite a pun.
No, one second. I'm saying that yes, we have to develop, we have to do all that, but we have to restrict our.
Your point well noted, sir. Your point well noted, sir. We are not encroaching the forest land or whatever may be, but still there is enough land. In the cities to redevelop, you know that what kind of problem. I am looking at land for my director house in last 2.5 years. I am not getting a 1,000 square meter plot which has a title clearance, or there is no dispute. Either you go and change the entire judiciary where the systems deliver the long lead legal items and those things. But as I mentioned you, if you want a foreign direct investment, they are not supposed to come and invest hugely in the redevelopment project, where the major cause in the India is uncertainty when I'm going to complete the project. So I would request to focus on the timely delivery of the projects. Otherwise, this foreign direct investment is going to bleed your economy, because they are coming with the rider with the percentage of the incomes, or that how the hidden cost involved in that. And after 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, your project got delayed. He will take his money back and you are going to bleed. So these are the main concerns.
We have to change the laws. We have to change. We need that.
So it's a process. So it's a process. I think we should hear what L&T has to say about it. Again.
I think it's a balance of both, very clearly. I think what Hafeez is referring is to revitalize the cities, have frameworks and policy push and sensitization at the citizen level towards resurrecting the cities. I think what Mr. Nahar has is the point that it's a high growth company that he represents, and so you need.
Are you not high growth company? Yourself, L&T is not high growth company?
No, we are, but I think if we are second to someone, it's Reliance Industries.
I think it's a mutual appreciation club they are into.
So, but the country environment, Hafeez, is such that I always pinch myself that most of us over here in our 25, 30 years of our career would have seen unprecedented growth personally. So this is truly exciting time, and like you said, sensitization towards sustainability at the grassroots level is very important. And I think
see, for the last how many years we have been just restricting our FSI 1.33, as if the guy is giving to a dog when you are eating a roti, le. Okay.
Exactly, I pointed out that.
No. So 1 second. Still, your FSI is not enough to your population. Still, the FSI is not, because we are all getting, if we increase the FSI, it is for the general people. But they say the media will write, it is for the builders. So the government is, afraid of it. You have to have your FSI proportionate to your population. A simple woman, she is pregnant, she'll ask her husband, "Arey bhai, where is the cot for the new baby?" Okay, all government guys are fathers and
Sir,
mothers.
that's why I am requesting.
So,
If the builder in go and get it done, always the politician or whoever maybe will point a finger. It is you as a architectural Bisham Pitama, your association should represent.
I have been talking about increasing FSI for the last 25 years. You can read Mr. Manoj Joshi's book also, where I had told him that, sir, you have to increase the FSI, and he says, how much? At that time I said, sir, minimum 5. He says, minimum 5. And there was a conference of the housing secretary. I said, Mumbai should have minimum FSI of 8, not by paying so much, because if you pay, nobody is going to take it. So we have to, anyway.
I think
let's
Mr.
have
Vatliboi
a
want to say
social viewpoint for Ratan's on this particular
I
point.
think, the FSI incentive and the lollipops that go with it at a cost is the only way that the government sees that they're helping in terms of policy.
I also feel that, and this is something that this forum is most suitable to of master planners. Cities like Bombay in particular, you have BKC, which has come up as a commercial center, and it has kind of taken off the load of South Bombay. But if you had more centers like this created in the periphery of the city, like a Dombivli for, let's say, an ITES or something. So, the reality of life is that India is capital starved. You can't go out and create too many urban centers because of the infrastructure involved in creating new urban centers. So you'll have to expand on the existing ones. You'll have to slightly make it vertical, and you'll have to distribute and decongest the office spaces, as in, having office centers right in the middle of the city.
So I fully agreed with you. If you go to the study day before yesterday, so Bombay, like if you only approach the Bombay, you are not going to get a large size of the rental or from A+. If you go to read the study yesterday, JLL and the Cushman Wakefield, which says that there is a huge amount of large deal in the Bangalore or the Hyderabad or the Pune, but Bombay is only 6%, where they taken care of 77%. So as you want to trillion economy, or what Mr. Valente is saying, that is, you have to go the outside where the affordable housing. We talk about the BKC, where the land cost itself is 3 lakh rupees a meter. You tell me which company or the corporate or the FTI or the REIT is going to sustain. So we have to be the balance in terms of the growth, then we can easily. And secondly, sometimes I do believe the architecturals or the structural consultants need to approach the new technology, the risk. Kamalji is sitting in front of me. If we talk about my JWC projects, I think I am the chartered accountant, I am the lawyer, I start with that. I have nothing to, I'm saying as far as technology is concerned or the architecture is concerned, I'm nowhere. But still I am heading the real estate project, that is the diversion I'm saying. But we had a huge discussion about under our drainage systems. Nobody wants to adopt it in India. But I think we had a huge discussion. He is the Bisham Pitama of the structural consultant. I am nobody, I am chartered accountant. But still, we have debated at least 6 months. I got my project late because there was a 182 crore benefit to my projects and also the long terms. Finally, he put his stamp, Rajmal, you are absolute right. Because unless and until you yourself, the architect or the structural, don't want to take the new technology or some element of risk to take on their soul, because they don't want to give the certificate. No, I will not certify, but without certification, I cannot take my occupation certificate. Like if your building is so close, these are hydraulic excavation systems, which I introduced in HNS hospital, which is second project only in India. So those kind of changes also are required from your side.
I think, talking about diverging the growth patterns, the concept of polycentric urbanism is much more in vogue globally. It's not a new concept anyways. Keeping that in mind, the smart city things and other kind of developments, there were new schemes which were launched, which were like Gati Shakti, NMP, and Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and all those particular things, aiming eventually to give a boost to our own profession. And we come in the layer 3, layer 1 comes here, where the jobs are created and they get the funds and the population comes henceforth. Am I right? I'm right that with his technology thing has to be imbibed in our complete things. I've seen we are doing PMA housing, and we have seen 50% time savings. By L&T is one of the contractors, who's one of the fastest contractors. We have 50% time savings which are happening in and around. So that means fast deliveries and fast economy turnarounds. At the same time, integrating these infrastructure which are there in Jan Shakti and PMA housing, because you are doing one of the largest housings, Hafeez. What do you think? These kind of schemes are going to help the economy or the fraternity, or what's going to be?
Yes, but I would say that that's not enough. We need much, much more. And otherwise, our cities are going to be flooded with slums. Today, Mumbai has, out of every 2 people, 1 person lives in slum, okay? Same thing goes for Kolkata, is after every 3, 1 person. Chennai, out of every 4. So, and we are going to have migration from our rural area quite a lot. If we do not have right policies for our housing, all this Prime Minister Awas Yojana, yes, they are there and they are good. We need much, much more, and in such a way that it should be affordable. It should be affordable. And when we talk about affordable, everybody says affordable is 20 lakhs. 30. Affordable should be, 6, 7, 8. That's the kind of affordability. And then only. Now, a lot of builders will say, "Arey, kya bolta hai? Hum log mar jayenge." No, that's for a different segment. This is for a different segment. And unless and until we put this population of ours in a proper house where he can go to toilet at any time he wants, he can sleep, he can, then only this population will get us to this 5 trillion. If you do not have, half of our population doesn't have proper housing, you are not going to reach 5 trillion. So to reach 5 trillion, to reach our city should be better, that people can look at it, and we have to do this.
So I think the keyword should be affordable and most important, sustainable. I think sustainable takes a more important role in the whole.
Hiten, when we talk about affordable, it has to be affordable to everyone, not only the government, but the end user and also the person who is going to build. If it is not affordable to him, any schemes you launch, it is going to be failed.
Absolutely.
It has to be. It has to make financially.
Yes, that's my point. But none of the scheme which the declare
now,
it's not that kind of. It's just talk about affordable without the involvement of all the 3 segments of the pillar of the industry.
Boss, I always say, for an accountant, 2 plus 2 is 4. For an architect, 2 plus 2 we can make it 24. So that is what I'm doing. Okay, and then I will make it like that in 8 lakhs.
Thank you,
okay.
sir. And sorry, Hiten,
imagine.
I have to leave. Once again, thanks to have me at this conference. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
I think Rajmal Nahar sir, just to introduce that he's inaugurating the world's largest Kone elevator which has been installed in this campus. He has a press conference, so sir, we wish you all the best.
Thank you everyone. Thanks a lot.
We'll continue with the session.
May I please request Directors, Nova Exhibition and Convention, Mr. Siddharth Saraf and Mr. Dhaval Thakur, to felicitate our guest dignitary, Mr. Rajmal Nahar from Reliance Industries Limited. Thank you, sir, for your valuable time and wonderful insights in the industry. We really appreciate you being present over here. Thank you.
So let's come to some tricky points now, enough of good things. Now we saw many projects which were in limelight, talking about disaster to the environment. So focus to preserve the environment is lost in the race of development, as what you were saying earlier.
You're like a media guy, twisting words. No.
I am a media guy.
No.
Right,
No,
I'm in that chair.
No. See, both everything has to go hand in hand. From one side, I am saying that we have a huge problem of housing. We have a huge problem of making new offices. The forecast goes that, the way we are today, half of India is going to be rebuilt in the next 20 years. Can you imagine what is that? The survey says that you have to make one Chicago every year. That's the amount of construction that is going to go on. Okay, and at the same time, okay, how you are going to balance your environment. We have promised in the Paris Accord that India will make our forest cover to 36%. Right now we are at some 20.
It is.
No, we are saying at 20. Really, it is not even 20, it is 4%. Okay, 4%. Okay, where are you going to get the land? So the only way that we can do is condense our cities, okay. In fact, for forest, this farmland also we have to condense. Think about better farming and increase our forest cover. If you do not increase our forest cover, we all feel animals are of no value, only once in a while go and take some photographs. No, they are part and parcel of the ecosystem. The bees, the birds, everything is a part and parcel of the ecosystem. And if you do not take care of that ecosystem, the human race is gone. So what do you want? Only 5 trillion in your pocket? Or you want to live and enjoy that also? You have to live and enjoy that also. So think about that, okay? And for that, you have to have a complete transformation of your bylaws.
Exactly.
Okay?
And nothing is going to... Rome was not built in a day, I'm sure. Rome was not built in a day. And I think where we are just focusing on building industry, I think we have infrastructure to look into. It's not about, spoiling the covers, grass covers or this thing. Where we see the worst of things happening in housing or whatever it is, I think there I see a opportunity. Why see that what is not right? You see the opportunity what we all are growing towards. And it cannot be a person-centric kind of decisions, like even PMO office gives some kind of decision, but it takes time to implement them. So similarly, that's what I was saying, the need to expedite infrastructure development. We always keep on cribbing, we don't have infrastructure which can be needed to development. I stay in Navi Mumbai. I've seen the time when we had one bridge and we see what kind of traffic jams used to be there. Now, to have another bridge, there are two aspects of it. There's some environmental person may say it's a damage to the society, it's a damage to the environment. And others say it's required because the human race has to exist in comfort, what he's saying. So I want to discuss on that particular dilemma, that how this ecological and political balance can be achieved to avoid the bottlenecks in development. I think Ratan will be able to answer that.
I think however much we desire balance, it's probably the worst or the most difficult thing for anybody in any course, at any stage of life, of profession, wherever. Everybody has a point of view. Hafeez has a very clear point of view that you need to densify, you need to concentrate. If the concentration happens with infrastructure, which is what Vipul was talking about, the entire path towards convergence, where infrastructure and housing and or building converge, where you don't get one without the other. I think the important thing is to be less greedy, and that's also relative, because the greed that I have may be different from his or yours. The important thing is to be socially aware, contextually relevant. It's very important to understand, like Hiten says, that if he lives in New Bombay and he wants an additional bridge so that he saves 1 hour of traffic time, is it depriving somebody else of a bridge or somebody else of a development that happens in another part of the town. It's very difficult for any political stroke large body to be able to see at a micro scale the impact of every intervention that's happening in the city or in anywhere. So the demand as it is pretty high. I mean, this is a very, very high ask, Hiten. The more important thing that we can look at probably is how we can think in larger forum where we get the opinions of many professionals, planners, economists, socialists, landscape, ecologists, etc., sitting together and formulating a point of view. Because as a Hafeez or as an architect or as a developer, it's very difficult for us because we're all trained to be blinkered about everything else. We're focused on exactly what we know and what we do best. And sometimes that becomes a very, very difficult position because it's always a you against me or my word against yours or my point of view versus yours. I think it's very important to sit in the room and develop a strategy which can be overarching about the economies, overarching about the social issues, overarching about the environment. Yeah.
So we actually rank around 177th out of 180 countries in terms of environmental quality. Now,
Yeah.
with the major investments happening by Adani, Reliance, do you think embracing renewable energy, Vipul, will help India economically?
See, I just go back to the point that Ratan made. I think that forums like these there are multiple aspects to each personality. As society, when we gather, we have to act like responsible citizens. When we go back to our individual setups and businesses and jobs, we have to maximize earnings and all that. But when we get to these forums, we have to come up with joint statements, studied statements which are able to influence policy makers for the kind of changes that we need for, decongestion, densification and what have you. So those have to be very, the kind of forum that you've organized here should actually, it'll be very fruitful if we come up with something which uses Hafeez's expertise. Can I sorry.
I think to have forums like this is a waste of time. Let me be very frank. Okay.
He loved wasting his time.
One second. Because we are all just bloody, just talking. It's a waste of time. Okay. You should get when you have a forum like this. The other day there was a forum, for that credit. Okay, they had all the ministers and all of them. And when the minister spoke something, and I said, sir, you should do like this. He says, okay, apan karu. Okay, apan karu. Now, when we are talking, and sorry to say that it's a waste of time, but yes, the mind gets stimulated and we come out with ideas and things like that. But there should be somebody who is going to follow it up. What the hell? Who everybody say, theek hai, and everybody has a cup of coffee and go home.
But Hafeez,
No, I don't agree.
I want to interject here.
See,
even sitting in presence of a minister who has no real incentive in terms of going back, he has so many 10 other things or 20.
at least
Listen, hear me out, please. We've heard you. He will not make a change unless forums like these make a documented representation to, forums like CREDI or wherever, and we make a institutional mechanism of following it through, is when we will make those changes. Otherwise, I have a bias of being more of a developer than, like a responsible citizen. And developers have been known to do all kind of things and, So, when we look at designing eco-sensitive projects or something, the end customer just doesn't care. He needs a better price. He needs a product. He needs more space. So ultimately, whatever sustainability we are saying, we can influence as a gathering, but it will come through policy push.
And I don't think any knee-jerk decisions by ministers really go a long way. You have an experience. I think the whole reason why we all can contribute through our experience to the forums, and that's where the knowledge sharing sessions like these are important. that each of us take each other's viewpoint and can do the needful in the professional lives.
So, but what should be done? Who are the organizers? They've got us over here. We are wasting our time. They should get a media guy to publish it. And the media publishes, okay, and then they should take a paper and say, this was the thing, we had talked, this. They should do it. Their responsibility does not end by just calling us, giving us a cup of coffee and going away. They should do it.
But that's the
So
how.
you tell them to do it.
That's the how.
You have
that's the
given
how
you
of
have
it.
given the message right.
I think Vipul's point is we should serve as influencers, and
Agreed.
and effectively, I mean, all of us know that we're on AutoCAD version 19 or whatever it is. Okay, the point is that it didn't happen on the first cut. Yeah, policies are put in place. Policies are being improved continually, being massaged, so to speak. Sometimes for political issues, sometimes for political gain, sometimes for strength, and definitely the intent is right. Sometimes it gets diverted in terms of intent, but I think the important thing is if policies can come in place, everything is moving in the right direction, so to speak. Yeah, it's not five fingers all pulling all over the place. It's actually converging into a structured way forward, and I think that's the important thing.
Absolutely. And I think wrapping it up, I think the most important thing is I feel we are in the golden era. Whatever you may say about how India has progressed, how this thing, we definitely have found a strategic position globally. Our architects, our planners, engineers are moving all around the world. Our governments are working. I'm not talking about a particular government, but since decades, the governments have been coming up with innovative solutions, dynamic solutions, that today where USA has declared recession for 9 months, India still is talking about reaching to a particular figures which looks impossible, but not unachievable. With this, I'd like to thank all the panelists on this particular thing, all my gurus and my seniors, and on the stage for giving their time. I'm sure it's not wasting of time. We'll all have a takeaway from this session. Yes.
Shows how committed
Siddharth.
Hafeez is to the subject.
Dhaval.
His impatience
Sir
is
is saying you need to
spectacular.
publish the excerpts of this particular thing where all the points are well placed. It goes to the media, right? Sir, please, sir.
Hello.
And one of another legendary.
Hello.
Sir, please, Bullion.
A lot of new ideas have been discussed here, very stimulating sessions, different ideas, and I have been working for the last 50 years with different developers and architects, dreamers basically, and these architects have influenced my mind also because I have been with them more. I've spent more time with the architects than with engineers. So we have to learn to not just fly with our ideas, but we have to also learn to walk on the ground. I mean, our feet should be on the ground because otherwise ideas will keep on flying from here to there. Nothing will actually be achieved on ground. So to put it in a nutshell, I agree with Hafeez that yes, we are short of land. We need to exploit this land to the fullest, and therefore we have no other option but to go multi-story. We cannot talk in terms of solving the problem by doing ground and 3 uppers. I agree with Hafeez. At the same time, we cannot lose track of the fact that we are bound by engineering laws, the laws of stability, foundations, earthquake, wind and everything. So when we have small plots of land, it is not possible to build something like 50-story building or 40-story, which is otherwise a piece of cake for today's structural engineer. Doing a 40-50-story building is not a problem. But when we talk about buildings in Mumbai, and Hafeez wants us to redevelop in Mumbai, we will have no other option but to go for cluster development. And I think
I agree.
you will have to tell us how we can achieve that, because today all the plots of land are very small, and every time a client comes here and he says, look, but I have the FSI, but I have tough time explaining to him that, boss, your footprint is so small, you cannot go that tall. But he says, but I have the FSI. Now this
I think the
has
housing
to
ministry
change.
last week has come out with a GR
And
about
that
cluster
should
development.
not be difficult to achieve. However, At the same time, it doesn't mean that we just destroy the old city and do cluster development, because there are some buildings which need to be retained, and that's why you are talking about heritage buildings, isn't it? So some of the heritage buildings have to be retained. So what do we do? So people like you know, Hafeez and all the thinkers should work on this idea. We engineers will be standing in the background telling them yes or no.
That's good. Thank you, sir. 5-10 minutes we can have question and answers if somebody wants to put questions. I'll be taking 5 minutes more. So any question answers you want to discuss with all the any of the panelists?
Constrained with the number of questions we can take, so very quickly. Yeah, all right, okay. Can we have the audience mic, please? Do you have one?
Okay, yeah. So, hello, lovely session, and whatever was discussed, and I just want to share with you, there are about 100 architects in the city who have come together, and we are working on policies which we feel should be suggested to the, especially for Mumbai, because recently our government came up with tactical urbanism. So there has to be something more than only the cosmetic things that we do. It has to be much more deep-rooted. And many of us are part of that here who are sitting here. The whole idea is, what is happening is what we discussed even last Saturday when we met, that for an architect or a designer or an engineer, until and unless you don't have a client, nothing happens. So we came up with a suggestion that if we can have some kind of a think tank where, you know, like all the stakeholders of the construction and development industry and urban development especially come together. We do have participation from industries, you know, maybe Reliance, L&T, Adani, whosoever. And there is some funding which comes into it. Then what you said, I really appreciate what you said, that, you know, we need to, and what Hafeez sir said is also right, because you talk all these ideas and then what? And we have been experiencing this over more than a decade. So the idea, until unless we will not come up with a concrete solution in the form of a policy, what you just said, and that's exactly what we are trying to do. It's not for us individually, but it is a real solution which we think. And we also discussed, a lot of stalwarts were there, and it was also discussed that, I mean, ultimately, we don't have all the information as architects. Architects are not everybody. There are a lot of other stakeholders. So it has to become big, and something which is like a think tank has to develop, and then only all these discussions will add more value to whatever we need to. I just thought I should share this information
I
with all of
appreciate
you.
your this thing. Yeah, Sandeep.
Yeah. So, of course, a very interesting session. My question is actually to all three panelists, but to begin with Mr. Hafeez, that you have been advocating this particular thought since a long time, and it's really a noble thought that don't acquire the farmlands, don't acquire the forest lands, do a densification where there is already an infrastructure there. Very well said. Considering that this particular request has been accepted, now let's talk about how would you do it. So my question to you specifically is that we have agreed for an unlimited FSI. Forget about 8 and 10. Given a choice to you as a very intelligent architect, okay, Mr. Hafeez, I'm giving you an unlimited FSI on one side. On another side, as all of us are aware that our nation has signed COP 2026, where we said we'll be net zero carbon by 2070. We also agreed on certain milestones by 2030, where we say 500 gigawatt power, 50% renewable energy, GDP coming down by 45%. What would be an approach by a stalwart architect like you, given your complete free hand, unlimited FSI, how would you create a mechanism to develop this construction which will stop the climate change and which will mitigate the huge risk of this global warming going up? Just talk about the 5 guiding principle or 10 guiding principle that, yes, you said go multi-story, don't feel fearful about multi-story. What would be the strategy?
Multi-story, is just, you're just catching one word, multi-story. It has to be a complete solution. How,
My question is purely, how would you mitigate the climate change strategy?
Correct. I invite you to my office. I have drawn these things. and how you can achieve it. How, to mitigate this climate change, the amount of trees that the world has to plant, okay, will take the size of United States and half of China. Okay, now that it cannot be done one place. Each and every one has to help in that. Yes, fossil fuels, no. Renewable energy, yes. Everyone has to do this. How, as an urban area, how are we going to do it? And how are we going to increase that green cover? We'll have to think about completely new ways of, you are thinking 50 stories. No, that is a gone old thing. We have to think about how our new structures are going to withstand your hurricanes, how they are going to withstand, your extreme climates. The completely new way of doing buildings. How we are going to have virtually zero carbon in all our, the way automobiles are going to be there. Completely a new way. I have drawn it out. And I invite you to my office, you come, I'll show it to you, and then you'll say, this needs to have this modification, this modification, this modification. Yes, we have to think about that. Otherwise, you see all these movies, what is going to happen, and I see it, okay, I see it coming. Today, how many high-rises are catching fire? Why are they catching fire? But you can ask, where is our friend, that Dharkar kidhar hai? Where is Dharkar? Call him. Why they are catching fire? All these things are coming up. And unless and until we think of it, and we start talking about it, then people will start realizing, and then maybe for when your kids are growing up, they will enjoy it. Okay? And unless we have to do it, because otherwise...
Sandeep, I think what we do is... I think what we do is...
I'm just concluding.
We request him for another conference, another conference on one of our IGBC platforms to actually give his thoughts to all the people.
Yes.
All of us, of course.
Yeah. So
coffee at his office is absolutely fantastic.
Hiten, I was just coming to that. This really calls for an exclusive session.
Yes.
We all will be very eager and happy, and will be extremely delighted to see these mitigative strategies, because we need to influence our young minds. So we will definitely call you exclusively to give your thoughts and presentation on how would you deal with unlimited FSI and yet maintain the environmental sustainability. Of course, green cover increase will happen. So many other things. Let's take that topic as an exclusive. I know you have so many thoughts. We can talk about it.
Yeah.
Quickly to Ratan, the same question. Ratan, given you a complete free hand, how would you purely focus henceforth from 2022 henceforth purely on a climate change policy, and how would you balance the wheel of a modernity in architecture and also mitigating the climate change policies?
So Sandeep, if you look at it practically, the largest contributor to climate change or the industry is the construction industry, whether it's mitigation of embodied energies at the manufacturing stage or here in building. A lot of issues will be resolved by having concentrated prefab, pre-construction or prefab structures. A lot of things will look at very differently if you look at modular and save time in terms of time and costs. If you look at the live, work and play scenarios of little townships, what Hafeez talks about in terms of not just housing, but restrict transportation, restrict travel, I think those would be the guiding principles. All the issues of terrace farming and growing your own trees and your own food, etc., would be lovely to a point. Everybody looks at electric cars and says that's the future, but the embodied energy to make the batteries is 10 times more than the petroleum products or fossil fuels, and nobody talks about that at all. It's one of those media suppressed things. So I think a little more research in those kind of things. The new techs like hydrogen fuels and things like that, water generators. I think the writing is on the wall, and there's a lot of reading that one can do about all this. I haven't really been asked this question, and I cannot formulate it, but I'm doing it on the fly. We've been thinking about it all this time. And like Hafeez says, it's holistic. It cannot be, I will do my building like this. it would expect huge behavioral change, huge social issues, huge policy change by virtue of even the application and the areas where which you can develop. Okay, you might land up with cluster development. You might land up with hogging Azad Maidan and creating a brand new forest somewhere else. I mean, those kind of compensatory areas in terms of land and development. All that can happen. Using space over railway tracks, using space over highways. I mean, that space has been paid for. It's already taken up. We can use that and generate those kind of land masses to do whatever we have to. That I just need to stop.
I think it was a brilliant answer. I'll just take 2 minutes, Hiten. I think yes. I mean, you gave some very good pointers where the densification, adaptive reuse, also less is more, and how do you see the more pedestrianization and so on. Very good. Last question to Vipul. You come from a corporate background. As a ESG, environmental social governance, which is a new policy which is directly attached to the more trillion economy. Quickly and briefly, any strategies that you have developed at L&T which will contribute and can be quantifiable as your environmental social governance? Please educate us on that.
See, I'm personally not involved with the ESG movement as such, but the question that you have been asking, and the eminent people, and I have little to add there because I'm not an expert, but in terms of renewable energy which has been spoken, whether there's embodied energy in those products that we are going to use as part of renewable energy, is something which again is a matter which has to be dealt with at an expert level. But the heartening fact is that renewable energy for the first time is more competitive. It's kind of it's cheaper than your conventional coal-fired energy, which is a big thing for the world to happen. So I feel this, and let's say forestation and all that. Again, I go back to relying on the government to push those initiatives, and for example, going the point which was discussed earlier about going high-rise. Again, you have to. I like the sort of the Hyderabad model of development where there's no government intervention in the FSI. It is basically to do with other models of what is the road width and your fire safety and all of that, and then the free market takes over. Whether your cost of construction as you go high takes over, and whether that micro market supports it, and then again government can intervene in terms of building material and their sustainability, use of fly ash and what have you. So I think both, we are a developing country. We have to again draw a balance. There is we have to put food on the table. We are now moving into a mid-income sort of a country. I think so. We have to be very sensitive that while sustainability is great, we have to also put food on the table.
I think that's
Thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you.
And L&T, I think all of us know that it's talking about imagineering rather than engineering. I think they have many initiatives which he can always boast of. I think last question, Mohit, we'll finish up with you.
Just a quick one. Agreeing with Hafeez, sir, I mean, the threat of climate change is definitely posing a big threat across the country. So just one thought that when it comes to reapproaching resilient infrastructure planning and design, half of our airports, they get drowned with heavy deluge of water. I mean, the entire infrastructure crumbles. Do you think that the kind of disaster resilient design and infrastructure needs to be the thrust from the government side and even from the designers? Sir, I mean, be it Kochi, be it Delhi, I mean, whenever there is a heavy deluge, our airports don't function. I mean, it's like design needs to be reapproached because the threat of climate is like...
No, first of all, when you're talking about airports, it's a very, very touchy point. Because you put airports in the middle of the city, then you restrict the height, and then you do not allow, it goes against what I am thinking of densification. But the way I would say we should have either airports very far off with a high-speed railway, so that the airport is not bothering us. Or if you want to still have an airport, then you start designing planes with vertical landing and vertical taking off, because otherwise look at it, half of our city, why are we restricting our, even if you have an FSI, Kamal is talking about structural, that we can do in so many other ways, and half of our city is restricted. So you're not utilizing land to the utmost level. So don't talk about airports. Airports should be far off, or think about vertical takeoff, vertical landing, so that land is not wasted.
Yes.
Okay, there are so many other things to be thought about. Okay.
Anyway, with this, thank you for being such a patient and lovely audience. Thank you, Ratan. Thank you, Hafeez sir. Thank you, Vipul bhai. And thank you, iDAC, for the
Ladies and
lovely
gentlemen, what a brilliant start to iDAC 2022. A big round of applause for our panel. Stay where you are. We've got a few things to do. If you've been watching this entire ambience, we'd like to thank Architect Reza Kabul and team for this fantastic ambience that we had at the inaugural. Great show, guys. And I'd like to request the directors to please step up and present our incomparable inaugural panel. It's been extremely fantastic. What a exchange of views and what strong viewpoints have come forward. And you also come up with another series that you can probably take forward with. Yes, it's important. And that's what iDAC does, ladies and gentlemen, germinates and formulates. May I request the directors to please step up on stage. Can I ask the volunteers to please bring up the mementos one by one. To save time, ladies and gentlemen, I start with the audience's left-hand side to architect Ratan Batliboi. Oh, you got that there? Okay. Hiten Sethi, someone makes the decisions. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hiten Sethi, for being here and conducting the session
Ladies,
beautifully.
could you tell me what you bring up next? Well, I thought I proposed, but apparently, okay, Ratan Batliboi, congratulations to architect Hafeez Contractor next.
Thank you, Architect Hafeez Contractor, for being here and presenting your beautiful views, insightful views.
And last but not least, Vipul Bansal, L&T Realty. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause. I'd like to thank our directors for doing such a wonderful job. A photograph with the panel, please.
A big thanks to
We
the directors.
require two photographs. We require two photographs, one with the directors.
A big thanks to the directors Siddharth Saraf and Dhaval Thakur for being here and organizing this beautiful exhibition. We are at the mega gathering of India's leading architects, consultants, designers, iDAC Expo
Thank you,
2022.
gentlemen. Architects, may I please have one more photograph just there with the panel for the publication, very quickly. Thank you very much. Ladies and big round of applause. What a fantastic panel. It couldn't have a better start to any panel discussion. And we're very fortunate they were here with iDAC. And on behalf of NOAA Exhibitions and Conferences, thank you, gentlemen. You made it very special. I'd like to say, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot more to do here today. We're starting with the intelligence series in a short while, so stay where you are. There's also this fantastic exhibition, and we also have 3 packed days at different venues all across with loads of information and lots of views, as usual. Once again, thank you for being with us at this wonderful inaugural, ladies and gentlemen.